Hey, what's up? Computer Science 2, this is 5th period, and this is the last one of these videos for the quarter. Take a quick look at the calendar just to recap. Don't worry, I'm not going to spend 10 minutes on this stuff. We're in the last completely full week, or the one that was scheduled to be a completely full normal week. And again, I'm going to try to grade everything by Friday, November 20th. If I put in a 0 and you turn something in after, of course I'll take it. Or if I put in a sort of halfway bad grade and you fix it later, of course I'll still take it. But I have to do it then, because if I wait until the end and I put in a 0 or a bad grade, people might be surprised, or the parents might be surprised. And I want to make it so that after this point your grades will go up, but not down, because they'll already be sort of filled in with the bad stuff. Not that there is bad stuff for everyone. If you've done your work, you might be just fine. Afterwards, we'll do that makeup and retake type work, and then I might post 1 or 2 little extra fun things in each class, but they won't be new lessons or new assessments of any kind. So anyway, with this class, I posted the final assignment yesterday, and it doesn't really have a lot of new information because I've been saying the same stuff the whole time. But let's again do a super quick recap. You've got your tutorial completed. You've gone through, made the screen, made the walls, made 1 paddle and 1 ball, and it bounces to make this 1-player game of Pong. Let me go back to that post I did that had the recap of the whole dang thing. And you know what? I'll bump that to the top just one more time in case anybody wants to look. And I will comment that, because you always want to document what you're doing in code and in other aspects of life. So this is bumped to the top. It has a video with me going over the steps. It has a video with some tips of, like, here are things I've seen people have problems with. And then here's the tutorial we based it on. Here's my example of what would happen if you go through that tutorial. You will get something like this. After it loads and you hit run, it might do another load. When you run Pygame for the first time in a while, it has to fire up all the libraries and so on. But it goes like this. It bounces off the paddle. I'm controlling the paddle with the mouse because that's very easy, but you could also make it keyboard or theoretically something else, I guess. And that is what you get if you go through the tutorial. It has some problems, like this thing where if you go up too high, it like knocks a hole in the wall. Same thing below. You could try to fix that. You could try to change a few things. Some people did different colors, or the ball was a different size, or the paddle was a different length or something. Totally fine. But I want everybody to lock in that before changing it. Okay? The whole point of this quarter, the reason I did all this stuff in the first place, is not because Pong is something special. It's not because there are, like, incredibly unique insights to be gained from this. You could do any exercise to use classes and functions and basic graphics and inputs. The reason I did this was because in quarter 1, some of you guys looked up tutorials for programs and you found stuff on YouTube, and I didn't like it. You know, I thought some were really bad code of, like, inefficient stuff with the same blocks of text copied again and again, rather than making them into functions and calling them with new arguments. And also just the way that people explained it. I found a lot that I didn't like. So the whole point of this whole quarter was to do one the right way, to find a good tutorial where the guy has good code, explains it well, and we follow it the right way, where we learn each step and actually know what we're doing, instead of just copying the final version and saying, hey, I did it. by hitting Control V, I did a project. If you haven't yet, I recommend watching these. If you have, watch it again. I've watched these several times, and you always learn stuff. If it's good, if it's a good, smart person explaining a good, smart thing, you could probably go back to the first video and go, oh yeah, that's why he did it that way, etc. There was one step of this video, I think, where I pointed out one line and I went, oh, I wonder why he did that. That's dumb. I should do it a different way. But then on second thought, I realized he had a good reason, and this was actually not something I want to change. However, I did change a lot. Just so you know, the hide function was not in the original. He just had 2 versions of show. The check collision thing was just inside of this. And I rearranged it to make it fit my style, of course. You can do it that way if you like. You don't have to. The point is, you will end up with something like that, where it has a paddle, has a ball, has 3 balls, and it bounces. Then, the final step is when you spread out from that. So in this first couple steps, I want everybody to really follow the tutorial, do the same stuff in the same order with minimal variation. You know, you can make the ball slightly bigger or slightly faster, or you can make it green or whatever. Or you can arrange your functions in a different way like I did. But it's doing the same stuff with the same general process. And then the final step is to change something. Is maybe you really want to do a different type of game, like take off the left wall and make it 2 players with 2 paddles. In that case, the left one could be computer player, it could be keyboard inputs. Obviously, if this were super advanced, it could be like somebody else connecting over the internet to play online multiplayer. That's not going to happen right now, but hey, maybe next semester. Or you could add other objects, different balls, different paddles, different, maybe like a pinball bumper somewhere in there, and if it bounces off, it goes in a new direction. Whatever you like, but it should be saved till the end. Your sort of creative new direction should be after you get that core thing. Anyway, you've heard me say that all quarter. The problem is we do want to follow that, okay? If you have gone through the steps and you end up taking it in a new direction, that's wonderful. In fact, you could even do something big, like turn the whole thing sideways and make it, I don't know if you know the game Breakout, the Atari Breakout, where you're on the bottom in the same thing, moving a paddle and the ball bounces, but then it hits little bricks and breaks them. And you could turn it into that. Okay, it wouldn't be that much, actually. It would just be one more object or one more class, and turn the thing 90 degrees. But just save that stuff for the end. And do it step by step. If you turn in something at the end that is totally different, totally out of nowhere, I cannot count that, because the whole point of this quarter was to follow a tutorial, the right kind of tutorial, the right way, and add our own understanding, building up to our own, you know, flourish, our own version where we can mess with it. But you get that. A couple things I've seen, a couple little issues that people may have had. First of all, obviously, it's got to be the right file type. When you go to Replit and you choose Python, it's not going to give you everything you need. You have to choose Pygame. Okay, so if you go to new REPL, mine might have Pygame at the top because I've used it recently, but you might have to scroll down or type in the box. But that has all the libraries installed that it needs, which Python doesn't on Replit. Even if you say import Pygame, it still doesn't know where to look and where to get all this stuff. Another thing is, and I know I've said this before, hit run all the time and then look at the errors. Okay, look at the errors you get in the bottom right, which you don't see because I'm covering it, but in the bottom right, these have to do with audio because the website can't run audio, but everything else, it'll tell you. It'll say like, oh, line 24, this thing isn't declared, or it's looking for a module when you mean a class or something. However, there is one issue I've seen people come up to that it doesn't specify, which is that sometimes a line needs a colon. Okay, so if you have a if statement or a variation like elif or else, if you have a class you're declaring or a function you're declaring, and it doesn't have that colon at the end, it usually doesn't say that. It says something else, and so you have to kind of know. But that's just like the first thing to try. If you ever see an error that you're not sure about, think to yourself, do I need a colon? Because that might be it. Another common thing is the size. If you have your window on the little preview screen here, you have to think that, okay, if something doesn't show up, is it really not showing up? Or is it showing up outside the window? For example, some people made their screen a little too big, and so like the bottom wall was not appearing. It was there, it was drawing it, it just wasn't drawing it in the view that we have. So imagine when you get an error about an object not showing up, or maybe not an error, but just you literally don't see it. Is it actually not showing up, or is it showing up off screen, in which case you can adjust positioning or sizing. Another thing would be the collision. If you add anything, the collision instantly jumps up in complexity. So that's where you'd have to put your focus. If you add another object, even just one ball bouncing around, it takes one line to create because you've already made the class, and it takes one line to update every frame because you've already got that set up. But it takes more lines to think, what happens if the balls hit each other? That's already like, I don't know, 8 lines minimum worth of stuff, and probably a lot more. So if you are adding objects, think about the collision as by far your biggest focus. We should probably make some generalized rules, because currently the collision is just like, if it goes to a certain zone that we know is covered by a wall or a paddle. But we should probably make some generalized functions of like, are you overlapping with any object? In which case we bounce. But maybe we could do that next quarter. Maybe we can have like a team thing where one person writes a nice big solid collision module. At that point it might be called a module instead of just one function, because it might be multiple things. Or we could see if Pygame has some built in. I know it does, but I haven't really reached into that bag of tricks. If you want to, you can, but we don't have a ton of time. So my final tip is to just say, make sure your thing works. I've already talked a lot about hitting run all the time to make sure it works, but that's what I'm going to do. When you turn in your project, I'm going to hit run. And if it doesn't work, then it doesn't work, even if the code is beautiful. So check that all the time. Make sure that your thing does what you want. If you're going to add multiple features, do one, test it, lock it in. If you want to add another, okay, maybe in a forked version, so it's on a separate branch, and you can always go back to your original thing. Or maybe if you're doing it one at a time, you can really manage that stuff. And by the way, you can go to version history just like in a Google Doc. But when I get these turned in, I will hit run to make sure it works, in addition to checking your plan and all of that stuff. So basically everything I've said is a recap of what I've been saying. But you know, the whole point of this project was to follow a tutorial, the right kind of tutorial in the right way. And if you are copying stuff from the guy in the video, that's fine if you watch it and understand it and do one chunk that he does. Great. If you're copying stuff from me after watching this and understanding it, and then you know enough to be able to mess with it and you put it inside the right file type, that's fine. Okay, if you copy the whole thing and put it in the wrong one and it doesn't work and you don't get it, not quite. If you copy from a friend, I saw one person copy code that their friend had done in a similar way to mine, but not quite. That's okay, as long as you put it in your thing and it works and you understand it. All right, but if you go and type in Python Pong into Google and copy the first result into a file, that is not what we're doing, and that is not the kind of thing that this project is about. So let me know if you have any questions. I'll see you guys soon. Oh my gosh, I haven't clicked in.